My toxic younger brother uses his time as the best man at our other brother's wedding to make fun of me and mock me in front of the entire family. And after dealing with this for my entire life, I now feel like I'm at my breaking point because this has gone on far too long. Here's what happened. Okay, so my youngest brother, let's call him Phil, got married today, and the ceremony was absolutely beautiful. His wife was stunning and everything was great and well done. His best man was our other brother, who I will call Jack for the sake of the story. My wife and I aren't part of the wedding party, which is fair because we didn't ask them to be in ours 5 years ago. After the ceremony, we did the pictures and a cocktail hour, and it was nice to talk to some out-of-town family and old family friends. And Jack and I were talking about the day that they all had, and then everyone was called inside for the reception. We go in and have dinner, and my wife and I were starting to kind of get tired, but I told her I really wanted to hear Jack's best man speech, so we agreed to wait. And honestly, I wish that we didn't. Jack goes up, introduces himself, and starts his speech. He says, well, about 34 years ago, mom and dad got married and decided to try for kids, and they started with the prototype, my older brother. And at this point, I should have known where this was going. He continued by saying, they realized that, hey, they could do better than that, so they got it right the second time. Me, Mr. Perfect. And I was. Our grandfather would call me Crusher because I would beat up my older brother as a toddler. We were always opposites and didn't really get along a whole lot. So mom and dad decided they needed someone to help them out, and so they had this guy. Now, when he came around, I was like, yeah, he seems alright. So growing up, we terrorized my older brother. Good times. Now, Jack continued his speech, but at this point, I was kind of checked out. I was and still am really upset about it because I have always been the butt of all the jokes in my family. My brothers, my cousins, even my parents. I'm the difficult one. I'm very emotional and empathetic, which is a blessing and a curse. I'm overweight and they're both athletes. And Phil actually works for an NHL team. I enjoy tabletop games, reading, and just being a nerd, whereas they like sports and outdoors activities. I think you basically get the idea. Well, I get up and my wife goes to the bathroom before we decide to just straight up leave. Jack then finds me and says to me, are you good? I meant to say at the beginning of my speech that I apologize because my older brother is probably gonna get upset. But I just look at him and I say, you're good, but I would have appreciated a heads up that that's what you were gonna do. He then looks at me and just goes, if I did that, I wouldn't have gotten the genuine reaction, and then just walked away. And at that point, I just met up with my wife and we left. So I asked her, am I being crazy right now? Was his best man speech really just a ton of shots at me? She said to me, well, it seems like he was trying to be funny, but not everything landed. And yes, you were most definitely the butt of the joke. After that, I drove home pretty much in silence. I'm tired of always being the butt of all the family jokes. We're supposed to have lunch with extended family tomorrow, and the only reason I'm going is because I only see these family members maybe once a year. I don't want to see Jack or really anyone else from my immediate family. So do I have a right to be upset? Or am I being overly sensitive in this moment? What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to the story they just shared. Here's what they had to say. Okay, before I talk about the lunch that we had, I'll share what happened to the bridal party as it becomes relevant why Phil didn't come. The bridal party was hit by a pickup truck right outside the venue. The truck was going 55 and the girls were stopped. Both vehicles were totaled, but they were adamant to go on with the ceremony and get checked out later. So Phil took his wife to the hospital today, and thankfully there were no major injuries. But now on to the lunch. My wife sat down with the families and we were all chatting. At one point, my uncle goes, Phil's speech was really sweet. I couldn't have given that without crying. And my mom says, well, yeah, he had something prepared because he practiced it with me and he changed it after the wreck. Jack then piped up and said, hey, I had a good speech too. But then my dad chimes in and says, yeah, it was a good speech, but it was all about your older brother. Now at that point, I just got angry. I then said to them, I thought it was weird that it was so focused on someone who wasn't even involved in the wedding. Jack and my dad then got quiet and then just continued their conversations with the people next to them. I avoided eye contact with Jack and then we left after 15 minutes. My wife and I then went home and we just proceeded to relax since we're finally getting a break from our students. And for reference, we teach upper elementary school. Jack then tried to call me once, but I just let it ring. He didn't even leave me a voicemail. Then about an hour later, my grandma called me asking how lunch was, and she could tell that I was upset in my voice. When she asked what's wrong, I told her about being upset with Jack, and she said to me, well, I don't think your brother meant it. And I just said, well, then why did he bring it up? This is all the time. And then everyone wonders why my wife and I don't come around as often, or why we leave early at events. I'm tired of it. She was really calm and just said to me, well, your brother can't give a speech and he thinks he's funny, but he can't make jokes without insulting someone. Have you told him and your parents about about how you feel? I said yes and that it hasn't changed for years. She then just says, well, y'all are just gonna have to work this out. I told her that I don't want to talk to him right now, and she goes on to say that she knows and that she understands. So that's where we're at the moment, because this entire situation is incredibly frustrating. Wow, Jack is a massive piece of garbage. This guy was making fun of you at your brother's wedding. Like literally, the best man speech is not supposed to be about you. You're not the one getting married. Like this guy's an idiot. I also cannot stand the fact that this all just goes unchecked by anybody else. Like if people really feel this way about Jack and his stupid jokes, then why is nobody coming to your defense? Are they that afraid of Jack's reaction? Because in my opinion, they would rather sacrifice your happiness just so they can keep Jack off of their back. Like I really think that's what's going on right now, because Jack clearly needs some kind of target to like bully and make fun of. And in my opinion, I think the rest of the family is just relieved that it's not them. So they say nothing and let this kind of garbage happen left and right. So personally, I would be like, yeah, you're all in on it. You're all terrible people for letting this happen. And the fact that nobody is calling this guy out on his BS, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my father out financially and potentially leaving him homeless in the future? Because right now I feel really guilty and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so growing up, my parents got divorced when I was 13 years old. It was a tough time for everybody, but I almost exclusively lived with my mom, with some visits from my father throughout the years. And I did this until I was 18 and moved to go to university. My father offered to pay some of the residence fees at the university, but my tuition was already covered by a scholarship that I took. During my second year at university, I found out that he had paid for about 3 months worth of fees and then just let the debt accumulate. So I got a letter of reprimand saying that I would be thrown out of residence if I didn't have the money within a month. Now, I don't believe that I was entitled to have my residence paid for at all. However, I was entitled to know when my father stopped paying so that I could plan or pick up extra work to afford a place to stay. I had asked my mom to bail me out, but I paid her back with interest when I started working after university. Fast forward some years, and as soon as I got a job, my father started asking for money from me. I didn't mind because the amounts weren't large, and I was prepared to sacrifice the money. But over the 5 years, the amount of money that I have sacrificed was most of mine and my fiance's savings. So I cut my father off, saying that I was not willing to give him any more money. He subsequently moved in with friends of his because he has not got a job, and from what I've heard, he has developed a problem with drinking. Well, these friends called me directly and said that I need to let my father move in with me because he is not their family and they are sick of having him around. They then went on to say that if I don't take him in, then they will leave him on the street. And this has caused me a lot of anxiety and pain because on one hand, I don't believe I'm responsible for my father's choices, but on the other, he never mistreated me growing up, besides some lies about university fees and other times that I just won't get into. I feel sick to my stomach letting somebody live on the streets. I am an only child, and my father has broken the trust of basically his entire family. For reference, I was not the only person he took a large sum of money from, so I am effectively his last resort, but I am still sticking to my decision of not letting him move in, especially for the sanity and strength of mine and my fiance's relationship, and for my own well-being. So am I the jerk for not helping my father out? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, it is not your job to bail this guy out. The fact that he doesn't have a job and that he's not working honestly falls on his shoulders and nobody else. And it's also really suspicious to me that the friends called you directly and they're like, you've got to pick up your father or else he's going to be homeless, because that just doesn't sound completely truthful. It sounds like the dad set them up to say that, and they're only delivering that message on his behalf as some kind of guilt-tripping tactic because he knows that you'll shut him down the second he asks you. So no, you're definitely not the jerk here, because everything your father's going through right now is quite literally his own fault. Am I the jerk for canceling a trip all because my friend stopped replying and has literally just ghosted me the second I told him what our plans were? Because right now I'm really confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female and I have this friend who we will call Brad. I've known him since middle school, but didn't really talk with one another. After college, we met and dated for a few months, but then I broke up with him due to the both of us not being ready for a relationship. Because at the time, I just got out of a 5-year relationship, with him just getting out of a 10-year relationship. And at this point, I don't really initiate the text messaging anymore. Usually, he'll hit me up after every few months or every few years, and then we'll start talking for a few months. Well, recently, he just got over a horrible relationship, and he was on the deep end. And me, being someone who's been on that thin line before, reached out to him to try and help him out. And it was then that I offered to go on a trip to Oregon and see my dad. And he was very excited about it at first. I offered this, by the way, because he was having so much trouble at home and his mind was very cloudy. So basically, I just wanted to help him out. Well, I wanted to buy the tickets to fly to him and get a rental car, which would basically be from Florida to Arizona. So I messaged him if he still wanted to go, and he said, of course. I then messaged him with stuff that we could do and places to stop along the way, and he just didn't reply. And at the time, that was honestly not a big deal. He has been doing that really often lately, so I didn't think much of it. Well, I waited a day, and then I texted him the dates and how long we'll be gone for, but he didn't reply. So I held off on buying the tickets, and I waited another day, and I sent him a message if he was okay, and I still didn't get a reply. Like I said before, he has been kind of distant. Even when I had trouble in my life and tried to talk to him, he was just never there. And he definitely doesn't owe me anything, and he definitely doesn't have to be just because I was. I honestly just felt bad for him. Anyways, I waited 4 days, and later that night, I sent him a text saying that I was holding off on buying the tickets and that I might just go alone since I have to take this trip. The trip is coming up so soon. It's in about a month, and if I was going to drive from Arizona up California to Oregon, I needed about a month of planning. And I also texted him that I was confused on what happened. Now, did I bombard him with texting every day? Sometimes I just messaged him by saying, hey, I hope you're doing okay, because he's told me some dark and really concerning stuff, and I told him that I care for him and that he is my friend. So when I see him changing his Facebook to all black and disabling all of his other accounts, it's honestly really concerning to me. So am I the jerk for trying too hard in this situation? But also, why is he messaging me every couple of months to rekindle our friendship? Like, why did he agree to go on this trip in the first place? He was the one who asked me for the dates and the plans, and when I did that, he just didn't reply. What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because the way this guy's leading you on, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. Like, this is not a good friend. This is someone who's coming back to you and basically trying to like rekindle something, even though he knows it's not gonna work out. And the fact that he ghosted you after you were like, hey, let's look at days in which we can travel, like that is really weird, and that's just so inappropriate. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, and if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my brother pay off his debt after he tried to publicly shame me for not giving him well over $3,000? Because right now, I'm incredibly annoyed, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 19-year-old female, and I started a new job recently where I saved up quite a bit of money over the past year. My family was proud of me, but my older brother, who's 25 years old, immediately started making comments by saying stuff like, you're finally rolling in cash, so I guess you can help your family now. He has always been bad with money, mostly from wasting it on gambling and unnecessary purchases. Well, last week, he asked me for $3,000 to help pay off his credit card debt. He said he needed it to avoid getting into more trouble, but I told him no, because I've seen how he handles money, and I don't trust him to use it wisely. Well, he got mad and called me selfish, saying I was being unfair since I don't have any big expenses right now. But it didn't stop there. A few days later, he went on social media and posted a rant about how I was hoarding money while my own family struggled. He even called me a bad sister for refusing to help out. And now some family members are saying that I should just lend him the money to avoid more drama. But I do not think that I should have to pay for his mistakes. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I'm incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk for not bailing your brother out. This guy's an idiot for acting like, oh yeah, you've got some money now. Looks like I can get a piece of that. Now you can get me out of credit card debt. It's like, no, that's not happening. What are you talking about? Just because you saved up a lot of money doesn't mean it's meant for the family all of a sudden. Just because this guy's a moron when it comes to saving his own money doesn't mean that you now have to bail him out. So no, you're not the jerk, because the things this guy was demanding, in my opinion, are completely out of line. My entitled boss demands that I follow every procedure that we have at our company, claiming that I can't make any mistakes. So I decide to maliciously comply, showing him once and for all how stupid this policy is. Here's what happened. So I work at a company that prides itself on having a detailed, overly complicated policy manual for everything. We've got rules for rules, basically. My manager, let's call him Dave, is the kind of guy who loves micromanaging. He would constantly hover over our shoulders, pointing out every tiny mistake we made, saying to us, if it's in the manual, you must follow it. Well, one day, Dave sent me an urgent email asking me to finish a big project before the end of the day. Normally, I do it my usual way, efficiently and with a bit of common sense, but Dave insisted that I strictly adhere to the manual since, according to him, it was a high visibility project and he did not want any mistakes. Well, Dave, this is something that you definitely should not have asked from me. I pulled out the manual and went full compliance mode. For starters, every procedure, no matter how small, was followed to the letter. Normally, I'd skip pointless steps, like writing a detailed log for every 10-minute task. But not this time. I logged everything. Did I start a document or save the file, or even change the font size? Well, if I did, guess what? I'm gonna log it. Also, it's super important that I request for approvals. The manual says certain steps need managerial sign-off, so I emailed Dave at least 5 times throughout the day for approvals. I would say something like, "Hey Dave, just confirming font size 12 is acceptable, right? Please reply so I can continue." And I did this about literally everything. Also, breaks were strictly enforced. Policy states that we get 2 15-minute breaks, as well as a 1-hour lunch. Normally, I'd work through a bit of lunch to get things done, but not today. At 12 o'clock sharp, I dropped everything and I left my desk. I also spent 15 minutes at exactly 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock just resting. Also, every department had to be involved. The manual said I needed sign-offs from IT, human resources, and marketing for certain sections, even though they had nothing to do with the project. I looped them in with formal requests, dragging out this timeline completely. By the end of the day, the project wasn't finished. I spent so much time complying with the manual that I didn't even get halfway through it. Well, as you can probably guess, Dave was furious, and he asked me why it wasn't done. So I calmly explained that I followed every single policy and procedure in the manual, just like he instructed me to do. I even showed him the email chain proving that he had approved my steps. Well, after I did that, Dave stopped breathing down my neck and started letting me work how I wanted. So honestly, I think he learned his lesson, because sometimes the best way to fix a broken system is to show exactly how broken it truly is. This is brilliant because honestly, I hate people who micromanage. If I've got a job that I'm doing and I know how to do this job, I don't need anybody breathing down my neck to make sure I get it done, because that's literally just going to hinder my process and it's going to make this harder for me overall. So the fact that you whipped out the manual and did this to the letter of the law and said, "Hey, I'm going to follow every single step, even if it's stupid and something mundane. Guess what? I'm still going to do it." Like, that is absolutely brilliant and so funny to me, because Dave deserved this. Dave seems like one of those people who loves pointing out people's mistakes, and so being a manager over people where he gets to point things out all the time is probably something he loves to do every single day. So getting back at him by maliciously complying to everything that he said, in my opinion, was absolutely necessary. Am I the jerk for calling my mom out in front of the entire family after she tried to claim that she was the reason that I got into college? Because right now my entire family's upset with me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 16-year-old female, and I graduated early, and recently I started college. The reason I'm already in college is that my mother pulled me out of public school when she found out that I was gay. She enrolled me in a homeschool program, which allowed me to work at my own pace. And if you're not familiar with it, the program I was a part of is an absolute joke. From the moment I got pulled out of school, I dedicated myself to getting into college. And this was mostly just to get me out of the house. I taught myself almost all of my education. The only official classes I've taken are Algebra 1, English 1, Civics, and Honor Science. This means I had a lot of gaps to fill. Now, just to make this clear, my mother didn't help me study. Her exact words were to say, "You have a laptop. You have the answers right at your fingertips." So I got a job the day I turned 15 years old, and I've been working for about a year now. I managed to save $9,000 to set myself up for college. I applied to college by myself, passed all the entrance exams by myself, and paid for my first semester by myself. And my dad has also given me $10,000, which I have not even touched. I decided that I'm going to save it in case my money or my scholarships are not enough. Well, recently, my mother has been telling our family members about how I got into college and how she's been helping me, claiming that what she did for me was the best thing ever. And this drives me crazy because none of this is true. But at our family reunion, I had had enough and I corrected her. I told everyone that the only thing she did for me was drive me to work when my dad couldn't and take me to one entrance exam. Well, when I said this, my mom got super mad at me, saying she paid for my homeschooling. However, I paid for the homeschooling program with my savings, and my mom paid me back over 3 months. My mom also claimed that since the savings account I used was in her name, and there was $300 left when I got access to it, that means that she helped me just as much as my dad. To clarify, my dad doesn't make more money than my mom. In fact, he makes less, but makes better financial decisions, like not buying a brand new car or a house right after the divorce, which my mom absolutely did, by the way. I don't agree that my mom has helped me at all, but some family members think that I was the jerk for calling her out at the family reunion. My dad and brother think that I'm right for not letting her twist the situation just to make herself look like a great parent. So am I the jerk for calling out my mom in front of the entire family? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk at all. This absolutely needed to be corrected because what your mom is spewing right now is straight garbage. She didn't help you study. She literally threw you to the wolves and said, here you go, have fun. Like, that is crazy and that is so unacceptable. It's also so awful that she would try to use you to look good in front of her family. Like, she's really trying to sit there and be like, wow, look what I did for my daughter. She did all of this because of me. It's like, no, you didn't. You didn't even help her study. You quite literally said, okay, here's a laptop, find out the answers, you can do it. And the fact that she pulled you out of school just because you're gay, like, that is so awful. I can't believe she would do that to you. So to me, it really makes sense why you want to get out of her house, because your mom sounds like an awful person. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.